We're a small crew today, so I'll go ahead and get it started though. Go ahead and call this meeting to order. And with that, I will have us let staff go ahead and give us any information they need to, and probably call the not the vote, but the who's here.
Quorum,
Yes, yeah.
We would be happy to do quorum in alphabetical order by last name. Dorsey,
Here.
Hoffer,
She's on mute.
Here.
okay, thank you. Littlejohn
Here.
and Smith.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
All right. Thank you all for being here. And with that, I'll get us moved on to item B, public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment or online?
We do not have anyone in the room who's come for public comment, and no one has raised their hand online to indicate they'd like to provide public comment.
Okay. I'll go ahead and move us on to item C, approve the minutes. And if you haven't done so, I'll give a little time for people to go ahead and do so. Or review the minutes, I'm sorry.
I will move the minutes be approved once everybody gets done reading them.
Okay. I can go ahead and entertain a second since, we're a small crew today.
I will second that.
Okay, I have a first and a second. And I believe we're gonna do a roll call vote for that. So Jessica, if you can go ahead and lead us through that.
Yeah, Dorsey,
Aye.
Hoffer,
Yes, approve.
Littlejohn,
Yes, approve.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right. Thank you all, and I'll carry us on to item D, agenda items. And Jessica, if you could go ahead and lead us through that on our first one.
Absolutely. I'd like to introduce Devonna Moore, who is here to present to you the Connected Freight Kansas City 2050, a plan in action.
We're not hearing you, Devonna.
While she gets started with that, we'll begin by saying the Mid-America Regional Council, in partnership with the Lawrence County MPO and Pioneer Trails MPO, have been working on this regional freight plan over the last year, and they're at a place where they're planning draft framework and draft plan are ready for receipt. We hear about it?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep, great.
Yay. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Jessica. So again, this is, I'm Devonna Moore today, and I'm the project manager on the consultant side for the Connected Freight KC plan, which included Lawrence Douglas County, MARC, and Pioneer Trails. So I'm just going to give a brief presentation, high-level overview, but if you want more detail about the project, definitely there's website information on that. We have a lot of great information around this freight plan in itself, and also the unique perspective that we try to use in standing up a freight planning process for these three agencies. So I'll be quick about it so you guys can go about. So if I can share my screen, and I may have to turn off my camera. That is okay, but I'm going to share my screen and hopefully you guys can see it. Oh, I don't think that was it. Let's see.
There we go.
Is it there? Great. Allison, you can go do something else. This is like probably the 17th time you've heard it, so she probably knows better than me at this point. So again, I want to present it the Connected Freight KC Plan 2050. We call it a plan in action. We wanted this to be an implementable plan that was ongoing and iterative, building up again, standing up that proactive planning process. And again, I'm part of the consulting team with CDM Smith. We also work with Vireo, which is our stakeholder engagement, and also HG, which helps us with our data and policy analysis. So again, the purpose of this plan was to define roles and responsibilities for planning agencies in the regional, state and freight planning. We wanted to again integrate proactive planning into the regional planning process and also support regional, state, and freight planning goals and objectives on both sides of the state line there. So again, this is just an overview of the study region. This consisted of 19 counties. You'll see each agency has its own distinct color. Lawrence is there in blue, Mark area in the yellow, and the Pioneer Trails area in orange. And this is the first time these agencies have come together to do any type of planning. The idea came about in understanding that we know that freight does not have any boundaries, and what's happening in the Kansas City region is impacting this whole particular area in terms of workforce, environment, and congestion and issues that we're seeing around freight there. The biggest challenge that came up about for this process was at the very beginning in understanding the data that was available between all three agencies, having different data sources and how they collect the data and really trying to harmonize all that together. And that was actually a part of one of the goal plans in itself, to really harmonize not only policies and perspectives, but also the data that is used so we can carry this information forward to figure out what's going to happen next in terms of establishing this proactive planning process, understanding where we are with data and leveraging that between each one of these agencies. So the plan outline is that the plan was divided up into two separate documents. We have our technical memo summary, which consisted of all the work that we did throughout the plan in terms of the actual data analysis around the freight statistics in the area, the outreach, understanding the infrastructure in the area in terms of where we are with bottlenecks, congestion, pavement conditions. We also looked at the economic overview impact of the particular region as well, and also did a closer look into land use, particularly on commercial and industrial land uses in the area to identify freight activity centers. And so there are several, roughly 15 or so technical memos that if you just need to help yourself go to sleep at night, or you really want to dive into some really freight heavy stuff, each one of those tech memos dive deeply into that. But that is available. But then to summarize all that, we put it into a more condensed document that's roughly about 60 pages that kind of gives an overview of all those tech memos. And then following that, the other piece of this plan is what we call the proactive planning framework. And this is where we identified and discussed the critical issues that were identified at the very beginning of the process, where we outlined what our proactive planning objectives would be for the plan, the key themes of the plan, and also the planning recommendations. So this is where the planning aspect of it takes place, where we look into policy, we look into planning recommendations, opportunities for these three agencies to work together, and how they can move forward in building up the freight planning process for each one of their agencies. So I talked a little bit about the proactive planning key themes. Again, we wanted this process to be something that was innovative, and we wanted to understand exactly what freight looked like when it intersect with these particular key themes around, for instance, freight planning, leveraging resources, infrastructure considerations, environment, industry impacts, all the things that are typically dealt with daily in you guys' planning processes. We wanted to get a lens of the freight perspective on that and understanding what that intersection looks like. And so that's how we were able to develop our key themes, and that helped us carry forward and keep us in line and with our planning recommendations and how we were going to address these particular topics and make sure all these issues were addressed in a particular way, in giving that freight perspective on each one of those topics there. So I talked a little about infrastructure assessment. This is just a quick screenshot of some of the things we looked at. I talked about the land use analysis that was done. We looked at the existing industrial property clusters there, and you see the darker colors as they get more orange or red, where we see more intensity with in industrial and commercial land uses, where we're seeing some freight activity there. We also looked, of course, at freight truck ADT, and we're seeing, of course, that congestion along I-70 that we're seeing throughout. And this is going out to 2050. We also looked at, developed our freight network map, and this map shows the freight network on the primary and the secondary freight network. So we have the national highway system as well as the state DOTs identified freight corridors as well, along with identifying where our truck parking locations are, and other freight facilities such as airports and rail lines are located. And then again, in the lower left, we see there, lower right, excuse me, the connected freight truck percentage map. And this map shows not only just the ADT, but it looks at the volume that is out there and how much of that is truck percentages on the map. And so you're seeing that heavier color on the outer areas of the areas, and not just in the urban core, but we're seeing that on the outer rims of the study area there. So what we're seeing more of is that as that truck flow is coming out in and out of the area is where we're seeing the heavier amounts of that trucks and where they're dropping off at. So that gave us an indication of understanding exactly, if you're looking at this, where infrastructure needs to take place and understanding that. And this again is going out to 2050. We looked a little bit closer at bottleneck analysis, and this is where we're just seeing these freight bottleneck analysis, and this is where we're seeing just for trucks how it's a little bit more congested and harder for them to get through these choke point areas that we're looking at, and this is happening more on the 435 corridor in the south part of the Kansas City area there, and that's going out to from 2050 to 2050. Looking at this a lot more increase as we're going through with the truck volumes increasing there. So again, matching up with the land use that was done and also in connection with the infrastructure assessment, looking at that, we were able to take some criteria and identify what we call our industrial land uses and freight zone activity centers. And so the areas that are located, highlighted in the white are actually our freight zone activity centers, and the items highlighted in the purple are our industrial land uses there. So you're seeing that intensity there. And so there was all these listed here are actually freight activity zones, but the ones that we've highlighted here in the white were our top 37 that were done, that we just wanted to show in particular that had the most intense uses there. And another thing that we did was did a matchup of exactly understanding where not only what these freight activity zone activity centers are, using certain criteria, and this was based off the land use that was given to us by the state, cities, and counties, and whatever the MPOs had. So we were able to glean that information in, and also do an analysis to see how where the connections are in terms of modes that are available near each one of these locations. So if it had connections to ports, water, air, and rail, we feel like that was a good opportunity there for more to grow there. And if we were missing some, that was able to be shown there as well. And just to help you guys out, I did like a little bit closer one for the Lawrence Douglas County area there, and we're seeing a little bit more of the freight activity centers are right along the highway there. So really no surprises there, and understanding that. Interesting to see what's going to happen as K10 is going to be expanded and what that looks like, and keeping that into consideration, and where there's opportunities there to maybe preserve where we are, or thinking about those impacts of the freight that has to go through those areas now that more traffic may be coming through, and what that looks like. So that's an opportunity there for you as a board to be thinking about more discussions of what's going to happen in the future. And hopefully this plan is set up to give you that information that you need to start having those conversations, because that's what this plan is really all about, to help people in your position as a board, and folks like Jessica that are there working to understand exactly how does this match up with everything that's happening in the future, and how can we be more proactive and not so much reactive to what is going to happen in terms of freight. So again, talked about the freight industry impact, and this is just a snapshot of why we wanted to lean into this, because of what freight means to this region. It's a key economic mover for this particular region. There's a lot of jobs dependent on this area. There's a lot of opportunity in this area just because of the geographic location of this region. It attracts a lot of freight type jobs and the freight related jobs, and being able to lean and leverage that, we want to find those opportunities to build upon that, keep a network that is being able to support this because of the economic opportunities that are there, while also remembering that we have to consider and balance our environmental impacts, our quality of life, workforce development, and making sure all these things are balanced out. So again, that's a huge topic that this plan dives into. And so as a resource for that, we also develop a guide for local freight planning. We called it What to Expect When Expecting Freight. It's just a little cute little checklist that we just simplified it for cities and municipalities that give them an understanding exactly of, hey, when these facilities come in and they're great and they bring in jobs, what are some other considerations that we need to be thinking about in terms of what's happening now and trends toward the future, giving them an idea of exactly, okay, as we're working through our land use plans, let's give more consideration and thought for what that looks like in the context of freight planning, because we understand that it's important. We want these jobs, we want these businesses, understanding what it means for our transportation network, our environment, and our citizens that are working nearby or living nearby. So this is just an example screenshot of what the recommendations look like and the plan. So we talk a lot about those key themes in that circle there. So this is the key theme around the leverage and resource partnerships. Again, we identified critical issues at the very beginning of the process, and we wanted to be able to establish that and with around the proactive planning objectives, and that helped us glean to understand exactly what our planning recommendations would be. So for each one of those key things that I identified in those circles, they all have planning recommendations based off of the critical issues and the planning objectives set forth in the plan and able to yield out those planning recommendations. Now, I will say for sure, there's more opportunity to grow this list. We can have planning recommendations for days and days. This gives, and that's the beauty of the process, that we're able to have something that is set up to have that discussion. So you're able to develop more planning recommendations in the context of freight, when you're talking about the environment, when you're talking about funding, when you're talking about infrastructure. There's a process here, a mechanism that can be used to help you develop more specific planning recommendations for your particular area. And as I said, this is the plan is available on the on this website here. But if you have questions, you can contact me or Jessica, or also Cy with the Mid-American Regional Council as well. And if there's any questions, I'll take some.
Okay. Well, thank you, Devana. And are there any questions?
I would just add, it was a great opportunity for the Lawrence Douglas County MPO to participate in this coordinated process. It expanded far the reach that we would have had to have been able to do it on our own, and really ensures that we're considered as part of the bigger regional picture. So thank you again for that. We will extend our thanks to Mark, but to Devana and their team, who had to be very sensitive always about the language, because it was multiple MPO planning commission regions. So.
I did have a question as well.
Yeah.
Is there, I was looking through it and I was wondering if there was room for artificial intelligence, and especially in terms of logistics. What kind of flexibility in the plan? Because, that might, I mean, I saw that you had logisticians in there, so that might, offset the need for them, and it's particularly in that aspect. So I was just kind of curious about that.
We dive a little bit more into that in the I believe it's the future trends
Mhm.
or tech memo there. We talk a little bit more about AI on that, actually, in terms of what that means for the future, and really still not knowing where automation is going to take place, how that impacts the workforce. I will say that I do believe that needs to take a deeper dive on that. Um, uh, we didn't really get a chance to dive into it the way we wanted to, because the hot topic that we had to really pivot on was actually tariffs at the time, that kind of took over the whole conversation for a while there. And so we had to pivot, and we dived a little bit more into that in terms of that. But I will say, along with a couple other project topics, but definitely that AI connected to the workforce and where we are going towards in the future. And we do have numbers around that shows where the freight industry is going to continue to grow, and our demand, where we are, where even regular job growth is, we still have a lot of supply chain jobs there. There's a little bit of imbalance there. So we talk about those processes for educational opportunities, starting with kids that are in high school, getting them involved in more jobs. Because I think when people hear freight and automation and jobs, like, they just think about the forklift drivers and what that means, but we're still talking about brokers, we're still talking about executives, we're still talking about economists, There's a lot there that goes into these types of things. And so we really wanted to highlight that and as an opportunity and set a framework to start thinking about what workforce looks like in the future and including those type of topics that you brought up.
Oh, okay, good deal. Good deal. I kind of figured, and I totally understand getting sidetracked with tariffs. I think you're not alone in that. So, any additional questions for Devonna? And thank you again.
No problem. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any, but if not, thank you again, and I'll go ahead and move us on. And we were just Jessica, we were just receiving this, right? Correct?
We're just receiving that today. We will, when we begin our process next year to update Transportation 2050, we will incorporate that by reference and through adoption of T 2050. So.
Okay.
Point of information, we do not have anyone in person nor online who has indicated they'd like to provide public comment on this item.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Thanks for the reminder. I'll check on the next one. All right, if we could go ahead and move on to item 2.
So we have provided a memo to you today that is core document amendments that are being requested. The U.S. Department of Transportation, we had previously shared correspondence related to federal transportation funding recipients that we had received based on the interpretation of federal non-discrimination laws with implications to MPO planning documents. And so we've attached a memo we put together with the correspondence that we've received, both from federal highways and also our partners, our state partners at the Kansas Department of Transportation, with marked up versions of what is requested for edits to us. And so we anticipate other documents, in addition to the ones that we have been given suggested edits to, will need to have amended text based on this guidance. And so we're looking for you for a conversation today. KDOT's on the call. It looks like Federal Highway's on the call. If you have any questions that we want to ask in terms of clarification, but we're asking MPOs, you to advise MPO staff whether or not the MPO policy board recommends that the MPO documents be revised in accordance with this guidance received from KDOT and our federal planning partners.
Okay. I guess I had an initial question as well. And I did see on there any amendments to the MPO documents will follow a process as establish the public participation plan. So if we do advise that, you know, that this goes forward, it will have to go to that public participation plan, correct?
Yeah, so any
Okay.
document that we would want to revise, an example of which could be the TIP, our Transportation Improvement Program, would follow any amendment we would do to that document would follow our expectations in our public participation plan around engagement. So it would have a public notice, it would have a posting of the proposed amendments. It would collect public comment based on the public comment period established in the plan. And all of that would then be brought back to you along with the technical advisory committee recommendation before you would consider official action on that specific amendment. So there's nothing in these recommendations or requests for changes that changes the public process that we have established and laid out for in our public participation plan.
Okay. And all of this is just to move that process forward to the next step, to the first step.
Yes, it's to make our governing body aware this is being requested of us and to receive direction from you if you would like us to follow this guidance that we have received based from our state and federal partners.
What is the risk of not following the suggestions?
Yeah, so I can let Allison maybe answer that in regard to the TIP or some of the other documentation, if you don't mind, Allison.
Sure, I can do that, Jessica. The risk involved in MPO documents not being updated and aligned with federal law and the current executive orders is a potential loss of federal funds to the region. Perhaps the freezing of the TIP, which would include not only KDOT projects and City of Lawrence projects, but also federally funded projects in our smaller cities in our community. Of course, Eudora, Lecompton, and Baldwin City. So that is ultimately the risk of if Lawrence's documents are not found to be in compliance. So of course, that's a lot of important projects for the region. So that's ultimately the biggest risk.
So currently, in our current transportation improvement program, which is federal fiscal year 25 through 2028, there's $221 million of federal funding programmed just for transportation projects in our region.
Do you have an example of something that needs to be changed?
Yeah, so in the document, in the, CC can pull it up and share screen. Suggested edits that are being requested, to summarize them, is basically remove any reference to environmental justice, which no longer is required in the federal process, and removing references to equity or other DEI language that's in our plans. That's how I would summarize the requested edits.
So really, we can say the same thing, just using different words.
No, it actually says we cannot do that. We cannot use plain language according to the USDOT letter if the outcome and intent is around DEI goals.
Yeah,
So
I've invented a new word, sir, called thesaurusing. We're not able to just, bring out the thesaurus and find a substitute word that sounds good.
So often, like, for example, if you would scroll down to the tip edit, suggested edits into the map. So one of the previous required elements of the tip was an analysis of the projects in relationship to transportation environmental justice zones. And now that is no longer required, nor is it based on interpretation, a legally viable option, that the request is to remove the entire section that relates to any environmental justice analysis. So that's one example of how this would pertain. So a complete removal of the maps and elements that show where our projects are in relationship to these demographic locations. But there's many of the others, like in the UPWP or in the public participation plan, are language edits. And then, for example, the limited English proficiency, the markups there are because there has been a revocation of the, revocation. Yeah, okay, thank you. What was previously required for limited English proficiency, required for translation and access to for non-English speaking populations. That English has been declared as our official language, and now there's no federal involvement in requiring translation service. So like the guidance in that space is locally, you can decide to do it. You're not using federal resources to do it, and it's no longer federally required.
Jessica, I would point out that as part of Title VI, there is a requirement to meet if there is a request. And Javier,
Yes.
maybe that's why you popped on, and I'll let you if you want.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Title VI still requires that we be accessible to anybody that does not speak English, because that is nationality, and nationality is protected status under Title VI. So even though LEP and the Clinton era executive order was rescinded, we still have that to fall back on.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
How many hours have been spent developing what you think has to be changed?
Well, at this point, MPO staff has received all of these track changes and marked up versions from our state partners. And so we've just scanned through and reviewed what they have provided to us, and we are waiting for your advice to move forward with this based on this guidance, to take action, because it is, for some of the cities in our region, a step away from the values that they've previously committed to in the community. And so we're looking for that advice before we proceed with edits in these spaces.
Do you have an estimate as to how much time it would take to do all the edits?
No, but I think that both and KDOT can answer this, or Federal Highways in this space, that the intention is to do it some of it as it comes, in the sense that, we do quarterly tip amendments. So if you advise us to do this in the next tip amendment, that's where you'll see these edits for that document, or if we have, we'll work through in the process. The reality is we have, many years of work over time, and so we're gonna have to take time in process to run all the process on these. It's not gonna happen overnight, if you direct us to go in that direction.
In addition to the public comment period.
Yes,
So
yeah.
it'll apply to each of the documents as they're revised.
Some of them will take longer than others.
Yeah.
Transportation 2050 is probably the most involved, just because it is also the biggest document.
Or any additional questions there? Not hearing any. And I just wanted to also, and with this and, as part of the public participation process, I just wanted to make sure that some of the questions here would probably be involved as well as the impact currently of the plan and what it would look like if the plan was not there, or if those funds for the plan were not there, and kind of, just to lay it all out on the table for folks, to prepare them for any sort of eventuality. So.
There would be a significant impact to speaking just as a KDOT representative, South Lawrence Trafficway, big
Mhm.
project. For example, that non-compliance could affect federal funds flowing for that project, as well as some of our other like transportation enhancements, the CRP projects that we just awarded funds to City of Lawrence for.
Mhm.
So those would be some of the more immediate impacts.
Okay. Thank you for that, Allison. I appreciate it.
I mean, I think very easily, if you want to understand impacts in this, you can look through our transportation improvement program and the project listings, and you can look at all the projects. And if they have federal funds on them, then I think that those are ones that could have potential impacts. So in that space, it's $221 million of projects. In our next TIP amendment, we're looking to add another 3 or 4 million. So it'll be upwards of $225 million of projects in that space. It's all of the federal funding that comes into our region for transit services, whether that's vehicle acquisition for our city transit fleet or our paratransit providers. It's transportation alternatives, safe routes to school, all the bike ped projects that are happening in the regions, anybody's funding for STP, with Surface Transportation Program, that they're using on major capital reconstruction. It's a quite extensive list of projects that have federal funding in our region.
Okay. All right. Don't want to monopolize anything. Just want to make sure if anybody else had any additional questions. If not, we can probably get to the advice part of this. I would probably start us off, and I would, advise to go ahead and get started with the process, to go ahead and move us forward, because public participation is a part of the process. So, and I think that's something we've been talking about for quite a while, is to, get out and let people know the impacts and, kind of, the choices that are available to them, and, kind of see what they would like to weigh in on, and what they think about it. So.
And with that in mind, point of information, we do not have anyone in the room looking to provide public comment on this item, nor have they raised their hand online.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else with advice for him, or dissimilar or similar?
I agree
Yeah.
with you, Bart.
Kate, I would also agree with everybody, so.
All right.
And we are looking for an official action of the board today.
Okay. So we're gonna call is it you're looking for a roll call vote?
Yeah, I'm looking
Okay.
for,
A motion and a roll
a
call?
motion and a
Okay.
second, and roll call vote,
Do
please.
you have suggested wording for a motion?
I think you could use the wording in here, which is advise the MPO staff to begin the process of revising MPO documents based on the guidance received from KDOT and federal planning partners.
Oh,
Somebody want to start off?
Sorry, there you go, yeah.
I was starting.
There was a big list of text on this. We have the agenda pulled up, but
Okay, I move that we advise MPO staff to uh,
you're okay.
I'm having trouble putting this.
Oh, you're okay.
I move we advise MPO Policy Board to recommend revising the MPO documents based on the guidance received from KDOT and federal planning partners and start the public process.
Do I have a second?
Second from KDOT, Allison Smith with KDOT.
All right, I have a first and a second. All right, Jessica, if you could lead us to the roll call vote.
Dorsey,
I
Hoffer,
Yes.
Littlejohn,
Yes.
Pat Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We will get started and we will see you in August. Probably
Okay.
with our first document, which is the TIP amendment. So very
Okay.
timely.
All right. All right, let me see. And thank you all for that. Appreciate it. And item E, quick updates.
Yeah, we have provided the link to our bike plan update process, our community page. We have completed our first round of public engagement, and all of the feedback that we've received has been shared with our steering committee and is posted online. And we will be continuing that process, gearing up for second phase of public engagement with the community, talking about strategies and recommendations, and looking at specifics of routes and other components of the priority network. So that's what's to come, and we'll just keep you updated as we move forward in that process.
Okay. All right, any questions? And I'm not seeing or hearing any, and this is just an update. So any other business? Item F?
So would you like to make an announcement? I know I'm off the cuff about local consult being scheduled.
I'm sorry.
Go
I thought you were
ahead.
talking to me. I was like,
Commissioner, you probably know more than I do. I have not seen an announcement, but they are coming up this fall. There's usually one in Kansas City. Well, there's always one in Kansas City. There's probably one in Topeka.
Yes.
Again, you guys get the press releases. I don't. So,
No worries. Yeah.
as far as
They
that
are
goes.
posted. KDOT has every 2 years as a process for local consult on their potential expansion and modernization projects across the state and each region. And Allison's right, but those dates are posted on the website. And I'm just mentioning that because I started the meeting having a conversation with Commissioner Dorsey about that opportunity to talk with KDOT about local project priorities in this context. So
those are in October.
October.
Early October, and then 21st and the 8th, or those two dates?
Topeka is on the 9th and Kansas City is on the 21st. So just
I would
point this out.
highly recommend going to both that are close to Lawrence Douglas County, Divide and Conquer or Marshal the Forces, and
Yeah.
take people to both. Handouts or sometime if there are priority projects in the county. I've seen a lot of those made available from our locals. So that can be helpful as well. And sometimes MPOs will put something together regarding the regional needs from the MPO perspective, as well as the local jurisdictions. So there's a variety of different ways to attend that. And then having modal, and I would definitely try to have some modal representatives. There are typically some breakouts that particularly pertain to freight, bike ped and that sort of thing. So having people that can speak directly to those areas is good too. So.
Thank you. Sorry for dropping that on you. that was on my
No,
radar.
that's okay. It's hard to get press releases. So you guys know stuff before I do.
All right.
Thank you for that, both Jessica and Allison. Appreciate that. And Commissioner Dorsey, of course. All right, keep an eye out on that, October. And I guess I'll move us on to item G, next meeting. Looks like it's August 21st.
Yes. We will plan to see you there. We know we at least have a tip amendment on the calendar, and so maybe something else, but that's what's on our radar right now.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. If that is it, I think we don't need a motion to adjourn, and I think we just disperse out into the ether, right?
We've completed our business. We are good. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. I
Everybody
appreciate
stay
it.
safe in the heat next week, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Take care.